Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Nightly News. I'm your host, Dan Chakowski, and tonight we're going to look at America's past. We're going to travel back in time to the 1830s. The United States charted territory had barely stretched past Illinois, Missouri, and Louisiana, but factories and farms were sprouting up everywhere and ever trying to expand westward. The farmer's crop of choice? Corn. You see, corn was a miracle crop. It had almost endless possibilities. For one, you could eat it straight off the stalk. Two, you could use it to make alcoholic beverages. Or three, you could feed the farm animals with it. Now, with this expansion in profit due to the corn, the farmers expanded their farms westward. The West was like an endless frontier. Now the problem the farmers faced, they had all this land, but now they were short of men to work the land. And that's where a lot of great inventions came from. And one of these great inventions came from a man named Cyrus McCormick. You see, before Cyrus's time, people had been farming the same way for a very long time. It took a lot of manual labor, and in turn, the farmers couldn't get as much to harvest. Even if they had more seed to spare, they couldn't do it because they simply didn't have enough time or manpower. Cyrus McCormick was born in 1809 on his family's farm in Virginia. It had always seemed like he had a knack for agriculture and inventing things, and so did his dad. His dad was tired of how tedious and painstaking it was to reap the fields and the crops, so he was working on a new invention. Cyrus's dad was working on a horse-drawn reaping machine. This idea could take the farming industry, flip it on its head, and have him begging at his feet. Unfortunately, Cyrus's dad gave up, but Cyrus took his spot and was successful. In 1831, Cyrus McCormick successfully made the first horse-drawn reaping machine. This was revolutionary. It cut, threshed, and bundled grain all at once. It was a fraction of the labor and twice the proficiency. People must have gone crazy for this, right? Wrong. Cyrus debuted his machine to the public, yet they were seemingly uninterested and unfazed. Sales were terrible. He tried making design improvements, advertising, even performance guarantees. Yet for the first 9 years, he didn't make hardly any profit at all. That was until 1841, when suddenly sales skyrocketed. The reaper had been into the agricultural industry and wasn't going to let go anytime soon. Suddenly he had to move production from a small town into a huge factory. He couldn't keep up with sales. He even traveled to Europe and got inducted into the French Academy of Sciences. This reaper was a big deal. McCormick's Magic Reaper was an amazing success story, and by the time he died, his company was secure, and his reaper had forever changed the face of the agricultural industry. His company still lives on today, but goes by the name of International Harvester. Come on! Another inventor I'd like to highlight tonight is one we've all heard of. He goes by the name of John Deere. And like Cyrus McCormick, John Deere was born into the early 1800s, and in the same similar circumstances, that it was imperative the U.S. agricultural market find a more effective way of farming. Deere grew up working in his father's tailor shop in Vermont. He polished and sharpened needles by running them through sand. He later took an apprenticeship as a blacksmith. After completing his blacksmith apprenticeship, he later got married in 1827. He decided to settle down with his newlywed wife in Illinois. Due to the shortage of blacksmiths in Illinois, it was easy for Deere to find a job. And like most others, he decided to farm on his land. But he soon found out a regular cast iron plow doesn't work well in the tough Illinois soil. He then thought back to his days of polishing needles, and thought a polished steel plow with the right shape would do the job. So he built one, and boy was he right. Popularity slowly crept up throughout Illinois, started spreading throughout the nation. Before long, business was too much for a small town, so he moved his business over to Moline, Illinois, due to its prime location on the Mississippi River. He later handed his business over to his son and spent the rest of his life helping the people of Moline, Illinois out. Amen. Both McCormick and Deere revolutionized the agricultural industry in the United States. They also fed the needs for the ever-growing farmlands of the Midwest. Soon it became too much for the cotton-picking South to handle, and the North began to dream of markets westward, eastward, and even across the seas. But for that to happen, they would need a miracle in the transportation industry as well. Well, folks, that's all we have for tonight. Once again, I'm your host, Dan Schakowsky, and thanks for tuning in to the news.